All right, welcome everybody who's joining us. Oh, I see our friend Matt Evans. Matt, you and I need to connect at some point. I keep seeing you in my webinars. We got to connect. So you all got instructions ahead of time to create an iClicker Reef app for yourself, or to create an account for yourself. But if you haven't done so, please follow the instructions on the screen. And if you've at least created an account, here's how you can join my course. If you have any questions, myself and Lindsay are here to answer. You know what? I think everybody's automatically muted. So if you have any questions, you'll need to put them in the chat window. So you want to download the iClicker Reef app from the App Store. It looks like this. We have an iOS and an Android app. And if you don't have an iOS or Android, you can just go to this URL down here and do it through your browser. We're going to have some fun today. Get everybody to participate with us. Everybody who's muted and not on video, we'll get to all participate together if you use the iClicker Reef app. So once you've created an account, follow these instructions to join my course. If you haven't already, you may have done that according to the directions that came in your email a few days ago. But if you have any questions, once again, put it in the chat window. Lindsay, I see we've got one in the Q&A window as well.
I will answer it.
Okay. We'll be getting started here in just a few minutes. Thanks, Matt. For those of you that are just joining us, if you would follow the instructions on the screen so you can participate as a student today, it'll be lots of fun, I promise. You did receive some instructions in your email to create an iClicker Reef account ahead of time, but if you haven't done that, go ahead and download the iClicker Reef app from the App Store if you have an iOS or Android. If not, you can go to this browser on your smartphone, go to this link, or you can do it on your computer. Once you've created an account for yourself, it'll just take a minute or so. Then you can join my course by following the instructions on the screen. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat window and Lindsay will be answering. Good question for those joining. Is it more important to be in Reef or in Zoom for those joining on a computer? So you're going to want to, I would say, stay in Zoom. And then when I go to ask you a polling question, you can just click over to your browser and go to Reef to answer the question, because you will actually be able to see the question in Reef. So you won't need to view my Zoom at that time. Good question, Michelle. Got a few more minutes. Okay, so if your email is already in use, it probably means you've created an account in the past. So
Yeah, that was part of the other one I just answered. So
okay.
yeah, that's exactly what I said. You probably created an account, so just use the forgot password setting, and that should take you through email steps to get reset back up.
And for those of you that are just joining us, welcome, welcome. Please follow the instructions on the screen so you can join us and participate and have fun today. You'll want to download the iClicker Reef app on your iOS or Android. If you don't have that iOS or Android type phone, you can just go to a browser and click this link down here in the bottom corner of my PowerPoint. And you'll want to create an account for yourself. It'll just take a minute or so. And then follow these instructions here to join my course.
Hello everyone, and welcome to the NYSOD Monthly Webinar Series. I hope you're all doing well and staying safe. Please feel free to write in the chat what college you're with and what your role is. Today's webinar is titled Questions That Create Connections, Fostering Deep Learning in Person and Online with Polling and Quizzing. My name is Nicole and I am NYSOD's Membership Coordinator. I have a few reminders to share before the webinar begins. The recording of this webinar will be available on nysod.org under Webinar Archives within the next 24 hours, along with the slides from today's presentation. If you experience a technical issue during the webinar, I will try to respond immediately via chat. If it is a question per presenter, please be detailed if you're referencing a certain slide. There will be some time at the end of the presentation for your questions to be answered. All attendees joining us will receive an email with proof of attendance for today's webinar. This email will arrive shortly after the presentation. Unfortunately, we're not able to credit those viewing the archived recording at a later date with participation. Lastly, you will have the ability to ask questions throughout the presentation using the chat feature. You may find the chat feature by hovering towards the bottom of the screen. Please take a moment to select to all panelists and attendees on the chat dropdown so that everyone can see your comments and questions. I'll give everyone a moment to do so. Thank you for updating the chat feature so that your message goes to all panelists and attendees. At this time, Lindsay Johnson will introduce our presenter for the day, Mandy Schaefer.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We're super excited to chat with you guys today. I am honored and excited to introduce Mandy Schaefer. Mandy has over 17 years of experience in education with a focus on student success, engagement, and technology. She's the Director of Institutional Initiatives at Macmillan. She holds a bachelor's in sociology and a master's in elementary education from The Ohio State University. I knew you would appreciate that, Mandy. After teaching in the classroom, she turned her passion for teaching and learning to writing and editing textbooks, developing educational technologies, presenting and training on pedagogy, technology, and retention platforms, and consulting with institutions on retention, student success, and engagement. An Ohio native, Mandy now calls Orlando, Florida home. So as you can tell, Mandy is an expert in this area. So without further ado, I will turn it over to Mandy.
Okay, thank you, Lindsay. Thanks everybody for joining us. It looks like we have 115 or more attendees. We're so excited to have everyone. I'm also so excited that so many of you followed instructions ahead of time and downloaded the iClicker app and created your course. If you haven't done so already, feel free to do so now. We're going to be asking polling and quizzing questions throughout the presentation, so it's not too late to join. And I promise it's going to be fun. So just one more time, I'll say my spiel one more time. You're going to want to download the iClicker Reef app from the App Store if you have an iPhone or Android. If you don't have that version of a phone, you can go down here to this URL. So just open a browser on your phone or go to your computer and open another tab and go to this URL. And then you'll create a student account. It'll just take a minute, first name, last name, email address. And then once you create that account, you can join my course. And these are the instructions to join the course. Now, if you don't want to participate, if you don't want to download the app, it's okay. I will also demonstrate it as a student while we go along. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now so you all can see in case anyone's still trying to join. And then one other housekeeping item, which we've already stated, but I'll just say it one more time. My colleague Lindsay will be in the chat window, or she'll be monitoring the chat window. So if you have any trouble getting into the iClicker Reef app, feel free to ask her there. Or if you're not participating with the iClicker Reef app, when we do ask a question, feel free to just put your answer into the chat window so everybody can be with us here. Okay, so let me just show you what the student experience is going to look like. In case you were not planning on joining, or in case you're still trying to join, you can follow along with me here and do just that. So instead of going to this URL here, I'm just going to go to iClicker.com because that's the easiest way to get in. And what you would do first is click create account here as a student. But what I'll do is sign in as a student. Now, this experience from the browser is exactly the same as if you were on a phone. So what I will do then is make this sort of a mini window. So each time that I reference what the student experience is, it'll kind of be the size of a smartphone. So that way you'll know what I'm doing here and that this is the student experience. So I'll go ahead and sign in. And if you hadn't already, you would click the plus button to join my course. You would type in the institution as Macmillan Learning and choose Macmillan Learning. And then your course, if you start typing in NYSOD, this is the one, NYSOD webinar questions that create connections. And then you would click add this course. So that's everything that your students would go through if they were setting up iClicker. And at the beginning of the semester, they would add each, or the beginning of the term, I should say, they would add each of your courses here by clicking that plus button, just like I did. They would add those courses to their dashboard. One-time setup, and then each time they come to your class, in person, online, whatever we're doing these days, they'll just simply open their app, log in, and click on the course that they're attending. So I'll do so now by clicking on the NYSOD webinar course. Get a little attendance record here, and then in a moment, a join button will appear, saying that my instructor started class. So I will click join, and you'll get a little warning about this focused class, and we'll talk about this at the end of the webinar, but this means I'm running a focused class. So I will be able to see if you leave the Reef app. I'll get a report at the end of my class session to see if you left the Reef app, how much time you spent away from it. And so we will continue to the focus class, and now I'm checked in and ready to go. By the way, it also took my attendance while I did that. So if you checked in, your attendance has now been taken. And yes, we do have an iClicker server in Canada. We'll talk about cost at the end, and let's get going. So right now in my iClicker toolbar, I can see I've got about 57 attendees. Some of you who are listed as absent, you probably just need to go ahead and join the course. So open your app, click into the NYSOD webinar, and click that join button if you haven't done so already. Okay, we are rolling. So let's just do a little bit of a practice here. I am going to start the clock on the multiple choice. I'll tell you what that all means in a minute, but our goal here is to balance the bars. So I just sent you a question on your devices. And all you need to do is vote at the bottom of your device. Here, let me pull up my student experience again. Here's my student. You see a screenshot of the question. You just click an answer. And I've got the toolbar live here, so we're trying to balance the bars. So everybody's clicking in, trying to get those bars to balance. Now, if we were in person, it might be a little more exciting because you could talk to each other, right? And do a little peer learning, little group learning. Oh, you're so close. All right, so I think we're getting the idea. I'm gonna go ahead and stop the clock. Boom. Oh, so close. So I stopped the clock to lock you all in. Your answers are now locked in. All right, good job, everybody. Let's keep on going. So as Lindsay mentioned, I'm Mandy. I don't think we need any more introduction there. Our agenda today, we'll do some questions to get to know you. I'll tell you a little bit of background and the story behind iClicker, how we can solve classroom problems, especially those due to COVID-19, but all problems. And then we'll have some fun. We'll do some active learning. We'll talk about flipping your classroom. We'll talk about some additional features that iClicker can offer that I'm not going to show. And then we'll talk about that free trial that that was mentioned. All right, so the first thing we want to do is I would like to get to know you. So before anything else, I'm just going to start that clock again. and tell me what your experience is with student response systems. Do you have any experience? Have you used them as an instructor before? So I'll give you just a few minutes. And again, if you have not created an account, feel free to just put your answer in the chat window. I'm kind of looking through the chat window now, but Lindsay was monitoring as well. Oh, look at that. We got 61 responses. That's beautiful. I'm going to let you keep voting in, and I'll pull up the results chart just to see kind of where we're at. So the majority of you, 52% of you, has used them as an instructor. Okay, good. 14 of you, no experience. And then we've got some audience members and some people who are discussing with faculty. All right, beautiful. So I'm going to lock in your responses. We got about 65 people, so that's what I'm going to look for on my next question. I want to see 65 or so responses. All right, what's your current role? Let me go ahead and open the results chart again. We'll just let this come in live. All right, and yes, Kahoot and Mentimeter, to answer your question, are student response systems. You'll see today that we have quite a bit more functionality, flexibility, easiness. Okay, beautiful. So mostly instructors and professors. We've got a few department chairs and administrators and some other, I think I saw some instructional designers in there. Okay, beautiful. 69 responses. We're getting more people joining. So we'll stop the clock and keep moving on. All right, last question, I promise, to get to know you, and then we'll get going here. So what's your teaching format this fall? I've been talking to a lot of institutions. I've been hearing lots of different things. We got in-person, we got hybrid, both in-person and online, and some online answers here. Let me go ahead and pull up that results chart. Oh, look at that. Definitely a mix. Only 3% of you have totally in-person. Not surprising though. Most of you have both C and D, so a little mixture of online synchronous and asynchronous. Okay. All right, lots of situations, lots of new things for you all, right? New ways of teaching, new things to learn this year. And we can help you do that. All right, so give me just a moment. I did want to pull up. Okay, so iClicker was built by, so we'll start with the background for iClicker. iClicker was built and invented by these two guys, these two professors from the University of Illinois. This is Tim Stelzer and this is Matt Sellen. And they were having their courses look like this. And students were failing their introductory physics courses because they were both difficult and boring. And those were their words, not mine. And so Tim and Matt decided that they needed to do something different. They needed to revamp these physics classes. They needed to know if their students were understanding the lectures, where they were getting lost, if they understood the content. And so they started having their students hold up flashcards, kind of something like this, a little nod to my alma mater, Ohio State. But they were having their students hold up these colored flashcards to kind of try to gauge the audience, you know, how many are understanding, you know, gray if it's A, red if it's B. But again, that's hard to gauge, and large classrooms are small. You know, I tried to do the same thing with my third graders, but even 20 third graders and looking at that audience, it's still hard to gauge, right? So then they had a better idea. They went into their lab in their garage and they started creating the first prototype for iClicker. And this was going to be a way for them to have their students vote in class and get their answers. So between 02 and 04, they created these three prototypes. And you'll notice, especially this black one here from 03, only had 5 buttons. And the reason for that was that they wanted to have something simple and easy to use. And so the very first clicker was simple, simple, simple. Then they joined us at Macmillan Learning. We purchased iClicker from them in the early 2000s, but they're still on board with us today. And we consult with them all the time, especially before we put in any new features or anything, because we're keeping with that philosophy of keeping it simple and easy to use. So we put the very first clicker out to the market in 2005, and it looked like this, sticking with the A, B, C, D, E. You can't really see those buttons. But one really cool thing about iClicker and Macmillan Learning is we truly do listen to our customers. And so our customers started saying, I need more than just multiple choice. I need the ability for my students to input answers as well. So that's when we came out with the iClicker 2 in 2011 with the LCD screen so students could type. And then we said, okay, these two clickers don't look alike, iClicker Plus and the iClicker, or sorry, the original iClicker and the iClicker 2. They don't look alike. Students can still use both in the classroom, but they don't look alike and it's kind of weird. So let's make the cousin iClicker Plus. So then we had the iClicker 2 and the iClicker Plus. But one thing we never did to our customers was we never got rid of any of them. So even today, all three of these clickers still could be used together in the same classroom. They would be limited to multiple choice, but they could be. Then, of course, you know, smartphones and things started coming around. So in 2014, we came out with the iClicker Reef app, which is what you all are using today. It provides more functionality and, you know, definitely the ability to use it with online learning and to be able for students to be able to vote from anywhere in the world. So as of today, these are the three main pieces of equipment that we use. You can use all together in one classroom. You can use just one. And of course, what we're seeing our customers use, except for my 2% who are teaching fully in person, most people are moving to the iClicker Reef app. iClicker Reef app, because that allows for all the hybrid and crazy mixes you all have. So fast forward to today, we're used by over 1,200 institutions, 8,000 instructors, 10 million students. And this slide's a little old, so I think that number is probably even higher than that. All right, so what classroom problems can we solve with iClicker? First of all, we can get your students to class. Research has actually shown that iClicker and student response systems improve class attendance. Because if you're offering, well, because you are offering students an incentive to come to class. Most instructors that use iClicker, they offer either bonus points for iClicker questions, or they make it a very small part of the grade. Small enough that it's not going to affect students too much, but big enough that the psychology behind missing one class makes them think, oh my gosh, I have to be there. So it definitely will improve your attendance and get your students to class. It'll allow you to create those connections with your students, to give every student a voice. So if you're teaching in a large classroom, every student can have their voice heard. If you're in a small classroom and students know each other and they're afraid to raise their hand, they can still get their voice heard without that having to raise their hand, without having to be embarrassed. It allows you to identify where in your lecture, where in the content are misconceptions, and also improving student focus. Our lovely millennials, we know are, and even those adult students who are working full-time, their focus isn't always where you want it to be, right? But if you have them holding their phone and interacting with you instead of Facebook or email or whatever else, then you're gonna improve the focus. Okay, so I wanna show you how, we did some questions to get to know you, but none of those answers were right or wrong answers. So I want to ask this question so you can see what happens in a classroom when there is a correct answer. So open your apps back up if they fell asleep. We'll start the clock. And you'll notice that every time I start the clock, it takes a screenshot of whatever's on my screen. I have not preloaded iClicker questions into our software. I'll give you all just a minute to read this question first. And for those of you who are not participating on your devices.
Oh, Mandy, somebody just pointed out, we do have AAAB. So obviously the second A is a B, the third A is a C. So sorry, that was PowerPoint formatting.
PowerPoint correction,
Yeah.
autocorrect, yes,
Yeah.
thank you.
So yeah, treat answers in the usual format.
Okay, so if I were a student, I would put an answer. I'm just going to say I'm not sure here. And you can see that it tells me my answer was received. And when I click that D, I did tick up the response rate to 76 people. And 76 was about where my class was. So let me stop the clock to lock you all in. You can change your answer as many times as you'd like, but once I stop that clock, you're locked in. Okay, so I'll stop the clock and I'll show the results. All right, so we've got, yep, somebody tested the waters to see if they could choose E, and you can. Everything's A through E. So if you were my student, you just would not get a point for getting it right. Okay, so our audience is torn between A and technically B. Sorry about that. Let me get my student. Okay, so 19th strain of the coronavirus or the year it was identified. So that was tough. I actually missed this one too. So the correct answer is it's the coronavirus disease of 2019, COVID-19. Now, what I want to do here is show my results again, and I want to pull up my student experience. So you can see now that my student, as a student, I answered D. Now, as the instructor, I am going to say that the answer is B. And I do that by simply just clicking on the bar chart. I've not pre-programmed any of the answers ahead of time. So I click on the bar chart and look what happened over here. It tells me now that my answer was incorrect and that the correct answer was B. So your students get to keep all of this. They get to keep the slides, which again, and I saw someone in the chat ask that question and I'll explain it, but I have not programmed any. This is just a regular PowerPoint deck. I haven't done anything but just added some slides to my deck. It has nothing to do with iClicker. The toolbar is simply floating over top of this, and it takes a screenshot of whatever's on my screen. So in a little while, we're going to go out of PowerPoint and play in some other softwares so you can see that it just takes a screen capture of whatever's on your screen. Again, I answer the question on the fly as the instructor. I can do that now, or I can go back in my gradebook later and answer it. But your students are now getting a study guide. We're compiling a study guide for the students to have after class for midterms. They can always go back and refer to this if you're okay with it. You don't have to share the screenshots. You don't have to share the answers, but it's so pedagogically valuable that I think you'll want to do it. All right, so let me move my student here and let's keep on going. All right, so here's the big question. If you're teaching online, how do you engage with your students? How do you know that Xavier and Sean and Tiana, all those students on the bottom half of the screen, how do you know they're paying attention? And more importantly, how do you know they're understanding what you're teaching? And if you're teaching in person, I would ask the same question. With the use of masks now, we've lost so many visual cues and human connection, right? This would be great. Have you all seen this? I believe it was a college student in Kentucky who created this for the deaf community so they can read lips. But how amazing would it be if all of our students had that? Now, we could, so obviously we can't require all students to wear these type of masks. So how do we better connect with our students when all visual and normal social cues are gone? In this earlier slide, I mentioned the classroom problems that we can solve with iClicker, but let's talk about the classroom problems we can solve during the COVID era. So iClicker is going to allow you to facilitate both live and asynchronous learning, online learning. It's going to allow you to read the room, whether your students are on or off video, whether they're muted or not, whether they have masks on. You can read that room. You can find out what your students are thinking. Definitely, it's going to make your teaching more interactive and engaging. I think all of you who are participating right now are probably enjoying this webinar a little bit more and maybe a little more focused, especially when I ask you questions. And then, of course, you can continue to track to improve your students' attendance, whether you're online or in person. So let's try a different question. And let me tell you a little bit more about iClicker as we're doing this. So the toolbar I told you is just floating over my PowerPoint. We never did anything. We never preloaded the questions ahead of time. And due to that, I do have to let iClicker know what type of question I'm asking. So we have 4 question types, multiple choice, short answer, and that'll give you up to 140 characters. We tried to match it with Twitter and then they changed their character limit. Numeric, which will put your phone in, numeric keypad mode, and then target question, which is like a hotspot heat map type question. Students can click on an image and you'll get a heat map back. So this is a short answer question. And so I'll put it on short answer and start the clock. So tell me right now during this COVID era, what's your biggest barrier in connecting with your students? Give me just one word. We'll put it down to just one word. What's your biggest barrier in connecting with your students? I'll go ahead and pull up the results so we can kind of look as folks are putting some stuff in. Yep, we got some similar trends here. And for those of you who are not participating as a student, let me pull up my student app here. Let me just remove this. Okay, so you see the screenshot of the question, and then you have here 140 characters to type. And I will say, let's see, what will we say? Biggest problem connecting visual. And then you do have to, if you're on your phones, you do have to send the answer. So iClicker knows when you're finished typing. And you always get that confirmation to say your answer was received. All right, 72 responses. You guys are awesome. All right, so let's show the responses. I'm going to go ahead and lock you out and stop the clock. So we can view responses in a couple of ways here. We can just scroll through and kind of see the highs and the lows. If we wanted to choose a correct answer, let's do like majority here. A lot of people said technology, distance. Let's see what the majorities were. I could have sorted this better, but you get the idea. Oh, and if nobody put the right answer, you can type in the right answer here for them. So that shows. But my favorite here is let's display it in a word cloud. All right, beautiful. Okay. Refresh this. There we go. Somebody's word must have been coming in late. All right, what do we see the biggest? Technology, distance. Whoops, I refreshed again. Technology, distance, time, motivation, internet, visual. Yeah. Oh, this is fun. Less interaction, less activities. Somebody tried to shove that all into one word. Good job. Relationships, preconceptions, absolutely. Cameras, schedule. What else do we have? Feedback, fear, video, timidness, timidity. Yeah, yep, I'm with you all. And iClicker can help with all of those. I love that. Okay. So I already mentioned this before, but iClicker can fit in any format, whether you're in person, whether you're online, or whether you're hybrid. And then freedom of choice. So you can use whatever you want. Your students can use whatever they want. They can use clickers, they can use phones, they can use tablets, laptops, any internet-enabled device. As long as they can get on the internet, they can use iClicker or the iClicker Reef app. And these are all of our question types. Exit poll we'll talk about in a little bit. And we are also coming out with a multiple choice very soon. And then, as I mentioned, iClicker works with anything. I listed out all these apps, but it's literally anything that you can pull up on your computer screen, iClicker will work with, and it just floats right on top. Whoops, skipped one. Sorry about that. Come back. Okay, and so this is kind of what it looks like, and this is an example if you're online, but your presentation is here, your Zoom software is here, or whatever you're using, and then you've got that iClicker toolbar that just floats right over top of your presentation. And again, that's if you're in person as well. It works the exact same way. All right, so I promised we would get out of PowerPoint so you can understand that I truly am not tied to PowerPoint. And this is also going to be a question on the fly. I'm just going to build this right now. All right. So if you're in like a really good teachable moment and somebody asks a question and you think, oh, I didn't put that on my PowerPoint or whatever, Google Slides or whatever you're using, you can just build it right here on the fly. So I'm opening a Word doc and I'm going to start inking, and forgive my terrible drawing skills. But this is a triangle and it's not perfect, but we're going to pretend that it has equal sides. And we're going to pretend that it has equal angles. And I would like you to tell me what kind of triangle this is. So again, this is short answer. We'll start the clock. All right, Jeremy's feeling it. I love it. Somebody asked, what would you use D2L for? For example, if you were posting some questions in D2L, or I know some people will post their presentation in the LMS and use it in class then. That was just the example for that. All right, so student, let me show you what the student app looks like. So I got the triangle there. I don't want to tell you guys the answer, so I'll just call it a black triangle and send my answer. You guys are a little slower on the draw this time. Nobody better be Googling. Okay. So I'm going to give you, and this is a good, this is a good example if your students are slow to respond. You can make the clock count down, so you could only give them 30 seconds or something. But what I like to do is say, okay, I'm going to stop the clock at 1:30, 1 minute and 30 seconds. So you have 10 more seconds to get your answer in. Make sure you hit send in case you forgot to hit the send button. I'm going to stop the clock at 1 minute, 30 seconds. So you have about 2 seconds left. Okay, so we'll stop the clock and we'll show the results. Aha, okay. Isosceles is the correct answer. Now here's the cool part about iClicker. Even if you spelled it wrong, I got to remember now which this is the correct spelling. Even if you spelled it wrong, I can still give you credit. Look at all these, I love it. And you can do this after class if you want to, but I get the idea. Sad isosceles, thanks. But other clicker systems, other student response systems make you preload your questions into the software ahead of time. And they make you say what all the possible responses that students might input. Now you have no idea who's going to spell what and how, right? So our flexibility allows you to just get all the answers in and, give anyone credit who spells it in any crazy way. Beautiful. Okay, you guys are so fun. Dorito, it does kind of look like a Dorito. Okay, apologies if I didn't get you the correct thing, if I didn't allow you to be correct, if I missed your answer, but we can fix it later in the gradebook as mentioned. Okay, so I want to do another example of how you can do a little bit of peer instruction with your students. So this is a multiple choice question, and I'll start the clock. And I don't necessarily want you guys to all get this right, okay? Because I want to give you a hint in a minute. So just read it quickly, give your best answer, and I'm going to stop the clock in 30 seconds, at 30 seconds, so 15 seconds. All right, maybe that wasn't enough time. We'll go 45 seconds. I'll stop the clock at 45 seconds. Oh, and for those of you not participating, sorry, let me pull up my student app. Where did you go? Here we are. So again, I would just input my answer. You can see my answer was received. Okay, sorry, I lied, 49 seconds. All right, so we'll stop the clock and we'll show the results. Okay, this is such a good teachable moment, right? The class is torn, almost equally torn, maybe not quite equally torn. But what do you do at this point? I'd say it's not okay to move on, because 28% of your class and 28%, so what is that? I'm bad at math. At least over 50% of your class got the answer wrong. I just basically told you guys the answer. Sorry, I gave that away. What I would do if I had my students in person is I would say, talk to your friends. Let's do a little peer instruction. Talk to your neighbor, try to convince them of the answer, and then let's vote again. If we're online, I might say, okay, I'm going to give you a hint. So this is just my PowerPoint drawing tool, nothing special here, just PowerPoint. And again, forgive the bad drawing, but picture an escalator. This is your hint. Picture an escalator that is going up, okay? And this is you with maybe a little larger head than you have, going down. All right, now I'm going to start the clock again. You'll see that it captured the screenshot of what I just drew. So now your students have that study guide again. Think about the escalator and vote again. Again, sorry, I kind of gave away the answer, but. And then as a student experience here, you can see the drawing. And so I get to keep that drawing. Okay, I'll stop the clock at 50. About 3 seconds left. Get those votes in. And this is actually good because I have 65 respondents. So now I know that, you know, at least 5 of you I may have lost. So I might say, hey, students, is everybody paying attention? I can't see you on video, but you didn't vote, so you're not getting credit for that question. I can, ahead of time in my settings, which I already did, is you're getting 1 point for being awake and just voting, participating. Sorry, a half a point. I give you a half a point for just participating. And I give you an additional half a point if you get it correct. So anybody who got it right gets a whole point. So let me show the, oh, where'd my mouse go? There we go, show the results, and I just click on the results chart. Oh, so much better, so much better. All right, so the student experience, I wanna show you one more time. Here's my student, whoops, let me make this, bear with me. I need to make this just a little bit smaller. Get my mouse back. Okay. Bear with me. Okay, so my student experience, I'm back here. All right, so as the instructor, remember I showed the toolbar to everybody, I showed the results, and I'm gonna highlight C, which is the correct answer, and then watch what happens over here on the student app when I highlight C. Boom, boom. Tells me I was correct, tells me the correct answer was C, and I can hit this results chart on my student app and see what the rest of the class chose. And the students get to keep this if you're okay with that. All right, beautiful job, everyone. How are we doing on time? Okay. So this is a scavenger hunt that I built for a community college who was having a different type of freshman orientation. And instead of allowing their students to walk around campus, they needed to do something virtual. So this is going to be an example of our target question. So I tell iClicker, I pull down the menu and say target, and I start the clock. And the question to you all is, where would you go if you had a hold on your account, or if you didn't feel like you could pay for school? You were having some sort of money problems, something to do with money. Where on campus would you go? So let me show you the student experience. So you will just click anywhere on the map. If you're using your phones, you can do the reverse pinch method to close up on your map. And once you are happy clicking where you are, I'll click on the library here, you hit the send button. Okay, so where would you go if you had a financial hold on your account, or you wanted to talk about some sort of payment for school? Hannah, that's awesome. I think I might have just pulled, Hannah said that's her alma mater. I think I might have just pulled this off of just searched for like campus images and pulled it off of Google. It wasn't actually the right map that I did for the institution. Okay, 75 responses, beautiful. Hey, my class paid attention again that time when I said, hey, some of you weren't participating. Awesome. All right, so stopping the clock, showing the results. Let me get rid of my PowerPoint so you can see exactly what I'm doing. So it's not so confusing. Okay, make this guy a little bit bigger, and what we have here is some great answers. So we get a heat map, right? We got a heat map, and to grade it, I'll just hover over it and give everyone who clicked the building or the sign for financial aid credit, and then we'll save that. So if you look at your devices over here in student mode, whoops, made him too big, you'll see that you should see your correct answer. Make that student app a little bit smaller. Oh, I just refreshed. I need to rejoin. All right, while that happens, let me come back to the PowerPoint. And that's a good thing, you know, to tell you. You simply just rejoin if you went out of the app for some reason. And we're back on question 10 here. So it tells me I got it wrong, and we'll look at this later, but it tells me there's an X that says my answer is incorrect. Okay, moving along. How are we doing on time? I think we can do this one too. All right, so let's get out of PowerPoint again. And this time we'll go to Google Maps. All right, so let's go to Google Maps. Also, you could go to Google Images. I had a biology professor go to Google Images and just type in cell membrane and then ask the students to choose somewhere on the cell. So we're going to go over here to Europe, and I am going to ask you to tell me where the Renaissance began. So here's my iClicker toolbar just floating right over top of Google Maps. And this is a target question again, so I'll start the clock. Where did the Renaissance begin? Another fun idea to use target questions, especially as an icebreaker at the beginning of class, beginning of this term, is pull up Google Maps and ask students where they're from. Just a good way to give you, you know, there's no right or wrong answer, but it gives you a good idea of where all your students are coming from. So David said he was surprised that he had to hit the send button, and that's just kind of because you can switch your answer choice if you'd like to. I love all the participation. You guys are awesome. All right, so we've got 66 responses. I'm gonna stop the clock at the top of the 1 minute mark. Oh, I didn't show the student response. So here's my student app. I'm gonna get the answer wrong. We'll put it over here and hit the send button. My answer is received. All right, beautiful. So let's stop the clock. Let me get rid of my Google Maps so you can see what I'm doing here. Show the results. And there we go. Ooh, quite the spread of answers here. Another good teachable moment where we might need to do some peer instruction, talk about this again. But here is the correct answer. It's in Italy. Okay. So I'm going to show you one more question type. And it is a numeric question, but I'm also going to make this an anonymous question. So when I hit anonymous here, you'll notice my toolbar turns black. And when I send this question to you, you'll notice that your student app is has this little dude with the sunglasses to know that it's anonymous. So using anonymous polling is a great way to ask sensitive questions of your students. Lots of psychology, sociology, human sexuality classes are asking students things about, you know, how many drinks do they have on the weekend, or you know, those type of questions. They don't actually want their instructor to know the answer, know what they answered. So that brings up another good point. As a student, as an instructor, I can see all of my students' answers. So when I go into my gradebook, aside from this anonymous one, I can see if you answered, I can see what you answered, I can see if it was right or wrong. Again, some of those free student response systems do not do all of this. And also you can give points for right or wrong answers. You can give points for participation. And then all of that can go directly to your LMS gradebook. We integrate with all the major LMSs. And then the anonymous question, you can still see that somebody participated, but you can never see what their answer was. So even students, you'll notice when you type in an answer, and I'm just going to say 99, when I send it, it goes away. You don't see it on your app anymore. And the reason for that is if I'm sitting directly next to a student, which may not happen for a while with COVID, but if I'm sitting directly next to somebody, they can't see what I answered. It's very private. Okay. So let's see what we got. This is actually a really interesting question. If anybody else wants to answer, I'll stop the clock in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, let's see what we got. That was my 99, 37, 35. Wow, if these answers are true, that's very interesting. Very interesting. So the majority of you said 0, 22 of you said 0, but then we've got, yeah. Okay, so the majority is we're still at 0, 1-ish. Okay, thanks for responding. Okay, so iClicker is more than just polling, and it's more than just what I've shown you today. Yeah, and that was a good point. A word cloud could be good for a numeric. All right, let me move my iClicker toolbar. So we talked about attendance, but what I didn't talk about was if you do go back to being in person, we have a geolocation technology. So essentially, when you set up iClicker, you circle your classroom on a Google map, and 15 minutes before class starts, students get a pop-up notification on their device reminding them that class is about to start. They go to class, they open up their app, and they check in for their attendance. And as long as they're within that radius that you circled on your Google Maps and your iClicker settings, they'll be able to check in for their attendance. And so it's automated. So you set it up and you say, I teach every Monday, Wednesday, Friday from 1 to 2 p.m. And then you don't do another thing. So every Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 11:45 a.m., students get a notification. And then at noon, your attendance runs. So if you only wanted to use iClicker for attendance, not the best thing, right? Like pedagogically, it's great to use the polling and quizzing and interact with your students. But if you did just use it for attendance, you wouldn't have to lift a finger after you set up that attendance one time, because it will run automatically every Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 1, or what did I say? I think I got the times wrong. I said 11:45. Every Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 1, and then at 12:45, students would get that notification. But anyway, it's automated for you once you set it up. And yes, oh yes, it is free. So if you are only using iClicker for attendance, there is no charge to you or your students. If you're using it for more than attendance, all the fun things that we've done today, it's still free for you as an instructor, but either the students purchase the app, and I'll give you all the pricing at the end, either students purchase the app or your department can purchase a site license for the app, or your whole institution could purchase a site license and take that payment off the students. Also, once students purchase a subscription, it goes by term, by semester, or quarter. Once they purchase a subscription, they can use it in any amount of classes. So if they're taking 3 classes, it's a one-time purchase and they can use it unlimited. We also, for my administrators and my department chairs who are on the phone or on the Zoom, we do have automatic reporting that rolls up all the attendance data for department or the entire institution. All right, focus mode. We talked about that. You saw that at the beginning of the class when you tried to join. And basically what happens is you'll get a report at the end. If you set it up in Focus, you don't have to, but if you want to get that report at the end of the class to see how many times students left the app, to see how many times students were not engaged, you can do that. And students get that warning on their device. You'll see that they get that warning right when you start class, that you will get that report. You can't do anything about it. Lindsay, correct me if I'm wrong, but if you're telling the students and they know that you're looking at that report, you can manually do things. You just can't do it in our grade book, but just the knowledge of kind of knowing that it's going to help. All right, we also have quizzing. So this is self-paced quizzing. So what we did was we asked one question at a time throughout the entire lecture. But if you wanted to do a quiz, you could hand out a paper. You can ask up to 199 questions at one time. So you can either hand out a paper, or if you just want to do like a 3-question quiz at the beginning of class to see what students know, or if they did the reading or whatever, you could post those questions up here. And then you give students 5 minutes to answer their 3 questions at their own pace. So while Lindsay's working on question 1, I might be working on question 2, and Nicole's on question 3, right? So it's not asking everyone to answer in at one time. They're essentially using their iClicker app instead of a Scantron. All right, exit polling is another feature where when you go to close out of the app, and I'm going to go ahead and do that now. So when class is over, I X out and it gives me the option to end class with an exit poll. All right, and I'll do that. And what that does is it gives students a chance to give feedback. You're asked to rate your level of understanding of today's class from 1 to 5, and then give any feedback in this comment box of anything you didn't understand. So if you go to your student app, first of all, you'll see your focus summary, how much time you spent in the app, how many times you left the app, how much time you spent outside of the app. But then you'll see this little bell. So I hit the back button, you'll see this little bell, and it says give feedback to your instructor. And so you can rate, and you're welcome to rate this presentation today. And if there's anything that you want to explain further, I'll reach out to you afterwards if you want to put a question in there. All right, and then, and you can use this in any way you want, whether it's after class or at a random time. This is not during class. This actually pushes it out to students, and they can answer this question at any time at their own pace. And then the study guide. I've mentioned this multiple times throughout the session, but let me show you what that looks like, and feel free to play along on your phone as we go. So I'll just make my student experience nice and big here so everybody can see it. And if we go, well, first of all, we have some statistics, our attendance statistics. You can click into your attendance. You can see how much you were absent. There's a little key at the bottom that says present, excused, absent, and you've got a calendar here. My student, you can't really see a good example for me. You probably won't see you're only going to see today's session, but as sessions add up, you'll see more. Class history, it shows that I checked in at 1:44 today. And because I rechecked in when I restarted my app. And then that I got 45.5 out of 63 points. So if I click into this poll, I can see all the questions that were asked. X if I got it wrong. If I got it right, there would be a check mark. I wasn't a real good participant, so but you guys will see better ones on your devices. And you'll also see I got a half a point, even though I got it wrong. I got a half a point for just answering. Oh, here's one that I got right. And so I got, I must have set up my settings for 5 points if you got it right, not 1 whole point. But you get the idea. You can also flag each of these questions to create flashcards for yourselves. So if you flag those questions, and then we go out and we go to study tools, flashcards. When I click on this flashcard, it flips. Oh, these were all opinion questions. Here we go. So when you click your flashcard, it flips to the correct answer. Not what your answer was, but what the correct answer was. Okay. Again, somebody was asking about Mentimeter and something else, one of those free apps. Any free student response apps are not going to track your student's response. They're not going to give you grades for your student questions. They're not going to give you a study guide like this, any kind of statistics, any kind of LMS integration. Some of them don't even allow you to show that results chart live in class. So, you know, free, that's why it's free, because it doesn't have the functionality that you may need and want, like iClicker does. All right, so one of the last features I wanted to talk to you about today is our assignments. We created this, thank you very much to COVID and the way that you all have needed to change your teaching. And so the assignments is for asynchronous learning. It allows you to upload assignments into the iClicker app, and then your students can go in and answer questions at their own pace. I've already done that for you. I should have shown you that. I've already done that for you in the app. And Lindsay, here we go, assignments. So you'll see that there's a current assignment in progress. I gave you 5 questions. I gave you a due date. The questions were just random ones that I had on a PowerPoint. So, but you could answer it, go to the next question, answer it. And so that's asynchronously. Students, you upload, you pre-upload your questions, you can choose the correct answer, and students answer at their own pace, any time of the day. Looks kind of like this on the student app, like I just showed you. All right, last but not least, let's talk about flipping your classroom. So assignments is a great way not only to do online asynchronous learning, but you can use it for a flipped classroom. So beforehand, have your students watch the lecture and then have them answer some of those assignments questions ahead of time. So that way, when you go to lecture, you're totally prepared, knowing what they know before you get there, right? And then during class, you could do some at your pace activities or have them break out into groups and answer assignment questions. You could use iClicker polling and quizzing. Maybe you tweak your lecture a little bit based on how they answered those assignments questions, and then ask some polling and quizzing questions throughout lecture to see if they now understand these questions, the content. And then after class, you could give them some more assignments questions to answer. All right. So just as a reminder, synchronous versus asynchronous, exit polls and assignments feature will allow you for asynchronous. And if you're doing live synchronous, attendance, polling, quizzing, and also exit polls and assignments. And then finally, the gradebook. I don't have time to show it to you live, but you're going to have all of your students. You'll see their performance points versus their participation points. You'll see what they answered, how many points they got right. You'll be able to see their attendance. You'll be able to manually manipulate their attendance. So if they were absent, but they brought you a doctor's note, you can change that and say that they were excused. You can put some notes in there to say why they were excused. Again, the sync grade buttons will push it directly to your LMS. So basically, after class is over, you come to your grade book. Your students already have grades based on what they did in class today, and you simply push that sync grades button and push it all to the grade book very quickly and easily. Again, these are features that a free student response system would not give you. All right, last but not least, for my administrators, my chairs, my administrators who are on the call, we do have an iClicker Insights dashboard. Gives you data and analytics about student attendance, about student engagement, and even retention. As part of Macmillan Learning, we have an amazing retention team and a research team who has done retention surveys for over 20 years. And so we have these short retention surveys that you can send to your students, and it's asking things like COVID-related stress. Do you feel like you can pay for school? Do you feel like you belong? Are you coming back next semester, next term, next quarter? All of these are things that you would never know about your students unless you ask them. So ping me if you want to learn any more about that piece. These are our major LMSs that we integrate with: Blackboard, Canvas, D2L, Moodle, and Sakai. You can always manually upload anything yourself as well. And finally, as you asked, pricing. iClicker attendance is free. iClicker students can purchase an access card from the bookstore. So we sell this to the bookstore for this price. And of course, they're going to bump up the price a little bit. But if they go directly through the app, here's the price they would pay. The longer they buy a subscription, the cheaper it gets. But if you use Macmillan books, any Macmillan product, you can add on iClicker for just $5. or as I mentioned, your department can purchase, your institution can purchase. We also have a lot of partnerships with other companies such as Perusal and Wiley and some other companies. So make sure you ask about that for a discount. And we are so close to the top of the hour. Here are our next steps. Instructors accounts are free. You'll all have an instructor's account now that you created a student account. You're just going to want to download the software. Nicole from NYSOD will send you instructions for all of that. Students always get a 2-week free trial once they create their account. So you have a 2-week free trial right now to play with your student and instructor's account. And I am going to open up the floor for questions. We've got just a minute. Lindsay, is there anything in the chat window that you need to ask that you haven't answered?
That is a funny question because there are a million questions. So I know we don't have time to get to everything. Let me see. What would be
and
the
we can
best
always
thing?
follow up with you all later. Nicole,
Yeah.
I don't know if we're able to run over, or do you need to shut this down now?
We can go over, and anybody that needs to leave can definitely head out and follow up with any other questions. But yeah, we
Okay.
can definitely leave it open.
We can just start with the most recent question about exit polling. I know you went over that briefly, but if you can just redefine really quickly what an exit poll is.
Yeah, exit poll is a way for you to get feedback at the end of class from your students. And so you just push this question to them at any time after class through iClicker, and it asks you to rate your level of understanding of today's class from 1 to 5, and then it allows students to send comments to you. So that can you can either post it that way, or you could say, if you still have questions about today's class, put it in the exit poll. Another idea would be to just do a short answer question at the end of class live and allow them to put in questions.
Okay, can you talk a little bit about integration options? So, specifically that we have different levels of integration and which LMSs we can integrate with, where grades can live at the end of the day.
Okay, so integration is available for all the major LMSs. I think I listed them in here. But the way that it works is you can send one total score for iClicker all semester. Every time you send it, it just creates one column in your LMS. Another option is you could have one column for every day that you teach iClicker in the LMS. Lindsay, am I missing anything else?
No, that's it on that one. Then, sorry, you guys have kept me really busy. I've been going back and forth between the chat and the Q&A on so many things. Can you show a little bit about like sharing on Zoom? Like what steps did you go through to get your slides up? And so people only see your slides and not all the extra Zoom stuff.
Great question.
If you'll just back out and then reshare and just show how you did that.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I'll start from scratch here, completely from scratch. Okay, so I'm not sharing Zoom, and I'm going to go to share my screen. All right, and I'm just sharing my desktop right now, so you can see that. This Lindsay and I, you could either just minimize the video, or I have 2 screens, so I would just pull it over to the other screen. And then I am going to open iClicker. So I have the iClicker Cloud software on my desktop. So I'll open up iClicker. And then it's going to ask me to log in a moment. And I'll log in and I'll choose my course. Come on, iClicker. There we go. So, it already logged me in. So my course was, what was my course? NYSOD. There it is. So I start class, and that's going to initiate that iClicker toolbar to pop up. So here's that iClicker toolbar. And then I open whatever I want. So I would open my PowerPoint. Actually, let me shut my old PowerPoint down here. Close. All right, so then I'll just open my PowerPoint from my desktop, and you'll see it go right up under that iClicker toolbar. Okay, so here's my toolbar still floating, and then I'll just put it in slideshow mode. And there we go.
Perfect. Okay. Then asking a question on the fly, there were some questions around basically, you know, pre-programming questions and so on and so forth, and how iClicker differs from different polling questions. And I think the best thing is if you could just demonstrate asking a question on the fly. Maybe you know, bring up something on Google Maps or YouTube, or just you put a question in Microsoft Word.
Yeah, so we did this earlier. Some people might have missed it. Let's just do this. We'll just type in, what day would you like to have the quiz? Right? Erase my lovely drawing here. Okay. And again, this is just a Word doc. Make this a little bigger so everyone can see it. And again, iClicker doesn't know what I'm about to ask, so I'll take my toolbar here and drop down to short answer, and I will start the clock. So it'll take a screen capture of my screen there. And my student app, do I still have you open? Yes. So the student then, let me leave this and go back to join the course again. So your student joins the course. And in a moment, the join button will appear. I can see my score now. I've got more data in here. Join. Okay, my instructor is going to be paying attention to how focused I am. And in a moment, you'll see that screen capture of my screen come through. There we go. And student, of course, can answer. Tuesday, send. And then, oh, good, people are still responding. The best group. And so we'll stop the clock and show those results. And looks like Monday is the majority, so I'm going to choose Monday as the correct answer. Tells me on my student app my answer was incorrect. Okay.
Okay. I think somebody's still seeing and like doing the same thing as far as sharing, back to that, but still seeing Zoom. So Deanna, if you'll just send me your email address, we can follow up. Okay, what other questions? Participation grades, a lot of questions around, and we can make this the last question so we can let everybody go. But there were a lot of questions around how you deal with participation grades versus performance grades and what options you have. So I was thinking you could go into the, well, you're going there. The iClicker Cloud Gradebook, I kind of,
same page.
You so read my mind.
So this is the instructor's gradebook. Let me go into this course, the NISOD course. And let me go into the settings first of all for iClicker. So for polling, you have a few options here. So you can have your participants earn, 5 points a day just for answering 100% of the questions, or 75%, or all but one question. Let's say they need a restroom break. And you can leave it at that. And or you can go down here and you can give points. Yeah, look where I made the mistake. I usually give a half a point, not 5 points, for responding to a question. This is per question. So a half a point for responding and a half a point for correct response, giving anybody who got it right a total of 1 point per question. But you can do that any way you want. You might say 1 for correct and 0 for responding. That's it. You have to get it right to get a point. I like to do a mix of both because it incentivizes them not only to pay attention enough to answer, but actually think enough to get the correct answer rather than just push a button to get the credit. You can also set a fixed point. So if you ask a different amount of questions every time, but you only want them to get a maximum of 5 points a day, you can set that limit as well. So hopefully that answers the question. If there isn't a correct answer, depending on how you have it set up, like if you had just this set up, then they wouldn't get a point. But if you had it set like this, a half a point and a half a point, and there wasn't a correct answer, then they would just get a half a point for responding. So if you don't score it, they don't get a point for correct.
Okay, sorry, there's one more, and this was just so good.
Okay.
When students are using the app on their phones and you're using focus class function, is that focus time affected when the phone goes to sleep? No. So that actually is set up like if the phone goes to sleep and the student is in focus, whenever they come back, that time isn't counted against them as like out of focus. One thing I will say is that if you're teaching online and many of your students are going to be using one device. So they're using Zoom and iClicker just on their laptop. I would say maybe don't use Focus in that case, because you are going to have students have one window active over another, and it's going to count them in and out, which defeats the purpose of it. But, you know, if you have a hybrid class, you have students in person sometimes playing on that second device while watching you on Zoom or while being live, then Focus is a really good option for that. So Brittany, I hope that answers your question.
It's a little harder when you're doing online, but I think using iClicker alone is with an online course, excuse me, is going to, it's going to keep your students focused anyway.
Exactly. And Zach has a last question of what if there isn't a correct answer, then you don't have to designate anything as a correct answer on there. That's one of the great things about iClicker. You never have to, you don't have to grade it. You can grade it if you want to, or you can go grade it after. So, okay. I know there were things we didn't get to, but hopefully we can get a transcript of, you know, the chat and the questions afterwards. If you have any questions, don't hesitate. Go to iClicker.com, click contact us at the bottom, and shoot over any questions you have. You can also sign up for a one-on-one demo or training. So if you want to see this stuff live in a low stakes environment with just one of our people, sign up for those. Those are at your convenience, and they're all, you know, personal one-on-one things. And we can walk you through and kick the tires and answer any questions you have.
Yeah, absolutely.
This was really great. You guys were so engaged. This is really wonderful.
Yeah, best audience ever. We appreciate your time. And I put my information back up here on the screen in case anybody wants to reach out directly. And that learn.iclicker.com, that can take you, I believe that'll take you to polling as, or not polling, to a demo as well. Lindsay, is that right? Or at least it'll connect you with your local rep.
Yes, exactly. You can follow the steps through there to get there. Thank you guys so much.
Yes, thank you. Have a good day, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you, Mandy and Lindsay, so much. Just to the attendees, everyone will receive an email with instructions that attended, so please keep an eye out for that about iClicker. And I'm just going to put in the chat too how you can access the recording of today's webinar. It'll be available by the end of the day, so you can always review it if you'd like. But thank you so much to everyone for participating, and again to you and Mandy and Lindsay for presenting. And I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thanks, Nicole. Thanks for being our host.
Yeah, thank you guys. Have a good one.
Bye.
Bye.